What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. Sherdog.com is a website. I am the host, Evan. Today, I have a special guest, Dayne. Dayne, how's it going? I can't figure out which way to point. We've had some tech issues. We're here. We're recording. I'm very happy you're here with me, man.
I'm always happy to be here, man. It's always an honor to come on here and talk fights with somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Well, I should just leave then. I'll leave you. The one guy is you that knows what they're talking about. It's been a pretty interesting weekend of fights. We talked about boxing a little bit. Boxing was not good. Last week on the show, I was going to actually break down the Ryan Garcia fight. I took a bunch of notes. For whatever reason, they like disappeared from my phone, or maybe I did it in my dream. I spent like 30, 40 minutes doing tape study on Rolly and Garcia. All that shit disappeared. Thank God. Times Square. They had the opportunity to do such a cool thing.
Now, why would they do that?
You know, boxing. We've got UFC 315 coming up. Pretty decent fight card in Des Moines. Jeremy Stevens returned. He totally should have gotten the fight of the night bonus, and we're not going to talk about their fight because we've got too much other stuff to talk about. But I mean, returning dude, Des Moines, like he's never going to probably fight in the UFC again. That's probably like a one fight deal he got. And him and Mason Jones like fought their asses off, and he didn't get the 50K.
Mason kind of pulled off a Brandon Loughnane, going for takedowns and whatnot in the third, and we all know how Uncle Dana loves that. So I'll bet you that it was punishment for Jones playing it safe to go for the win. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I kind of don't blame him, but at the same time, like, dude, that 50K is probably more than the other half of your purse.
That's my thought too.
Whatever. You almost rather be on Dana's good side coming off of a loss than like on his bad side coming off of a win in 2025. We're going to talk about a guy that's definitely on Dana's good side because he got a 50K bonus and he looked awesome, but I don't know if he really deserved one. I mean, all the fighters deserve one. Cory Sandhagen took on Deiveson Figueiredo, defeated him via second round TKO injury, but he did tap. This is a weird fight because I think Cory Sandhagen looked phenomenal, maybe the best he's looked. And then I think Deiveson Figueiredo looked absolutely terrible and had a terrible game plan. And I kind of stuck and I don't know how to feel about Sandhagen. And I feel bad for him because, he sort of deserves a title fight, but I don't know if he's going to get one. What'd you think of Figgy's game plan?
I largely feel the same with your sentiment about both of them. I thought Sandhagen looked great, but I also thought Figgy looked absolutely terrible. So I'm actually holding a little bit off on Sandhagen looking great because there's a part of me that's like, did he really just look that good because Figgy looked that bad? About the only thing that Figgy seemed to have going for him was he looked pretty slick with dodging some of Sandhagen's punches at time, but it was still pretty bad because that was about the only thing that he had going for him was some of his head movement. The rest of the time he was not doing anything to throw back in return. So Figgy looked awful. And I hate to say it, but I think he's 37. I think it's just father time catching up with him. I will throw out the fact that Sandhagen's probably the longest opponent that he's ever faced, and so I think he may have been frozen by that somewhat. But I feel like the Figgy of 3 or 4 years ago would have just gone guns a-blazing trying to find Sandhagen's chin, and that guy was nowhere to be found this time.
I agree, but also too, he did fight Cheeto, and Cheeto has like one of the longest reaches and leg reaches like in the whole bantamweight division. Cheeto's like a long, tall dude. If you 4 years ago, like when Figgy was at the height of his Brandon Moreno quadrilogy or whatever that was, and Cory Sandhagen was getting choked out by Aljo, that was kind of right around the same amount of time, I believe, right? It happened right about the same time. I would have probably picked Figgy to beat Sandhagen at that point, but both dudes have, their careers just have changed so drastically. Like Deiveson Figueiredo is clearly, on the back nine. Also, too, I just like, what the hell, dude? Why are you playing this like 50-50 leg entanglement game with a guy that literally has Ryan Hall in his corner? Shout out to Cory Sandhagen for like he totally did his Dominic Cruz thing in the post-fight interview where Bisping's like, it's a shame that this ended by injury, and he's like, no, it's not a shame. I'm the one that caused the injury. It's like, oh, okay, like you really do want to be Dominic Cruz. What did you think of?
I don't know exactly what is up with Figgy's knee. I haven't heard completely everything with that, and that's my bad. I know that they have released something. I think that it's plausible, but I don't know. It looked more like a freak injury, and it's possible that Figgy could have had some knee issues coming in. I think that Sandhagen's probably overstepping it, but that's just me. But fighters like to take credit for those things, and that's not to say that sometimes I don't think it's true. Like I think when Poirier and McGregor met for the third time, and McGregor's leg snapped. Poirier was talking about how he checked the kick, and he knew that at some point it was going to snap. I don't know if he knew that. I don't know if he actually knew that, but I do think that he checked the leg, and that did come back and bite Conor in the end. So, but I didn't see anything that might have done that. But given that those 50-50 situations can be tricky, probably need to go back and rewatch the whole fight. And it wasn't too long of a fight, so it wouldn't be too difficult. But shit, life happens. So, but yeah, I don't mind him saying it, but I'm not going to give him the credit until I know for sure.
It's interesting because he looked so great. Like Cory Sandhagen's ground and pound in the first round looked great. He looked good, kind of getting out of that overzealous position that Deiveson Figueiredo took when Deiveson Figueiredo kind of like jumped the back. Figgy got too high, and Cory Sandhagen was able to kind of get out of that. He, again, his ground and pound looked good. He looked really kind of ferocious in this fight. And he's very studious and very thoughtful dude. Like he knows that he doesn't have huge like one-shot power like Deiveson Figueiredo. So it looks like he's just turning up the damage, which is going to be helpful for him. I think that's what set him apart and sets him apart from guys like Petr Yan, who are, when I think of dudes that have like the most well-rounded skill sets in all of MMA, I think about dudes like Petr Yan. I think about dudes like Cory Sandhagen. But the difference between both of those guys is like Petr Yan has been a punisher since he's been in the UFC and in this bantamweight division. And Cory Sandhagen does have those, look what he did to Frankie Edgar, but he has not been the punisher that Petr Yan has been. And I think he's starting to finally turn that corner and become a dude that is a more punishing fighter. He looked venomous in this fight. And I feel bad for him because like you said, the fight, he was on his way to, if it's Figgy and like, who knows what would have happened in the third round if he's like, okay, I'm going to go strike with this guy. Cause I just, Deiveson Figueiredo is at bantamweight. His game plan should be fight like Yoel Romero, take advantage of big moments and try to fucking hurt people and try to win scorecards or win the fight by, being the more damaging guy. He's never going to be the volume dude at bantamweight, especially at the age that he's at. And then wrestling, like topside wrestling, but guard jiu-jitsu. 2025. What are you doing, bro?
That's the great thing about this sport, dude. You'll occasionally get somebody who forgets what year it is. No, but you're talking about
very good. Figgy's like probably one of the like top 25 or 30 best fighters ever. Like if you really look at it.
Yeah,
Look
no,
at his
and I
championship reign
think
at 125. Look what he did there.
Reigns, there were two, man.
Yeah. Dude, do you
Um,
remember what he did to Joseph Benavidez when he fucking clubbed and subbed him so bad in their second fight? Joseph Benavidez woke up screaming.
yep.
Paul Felder was like, well, glad to see that Joseph's, and his poor wife is like in the arena watching this happen. Like Figgy was a marauder and a murderer, but I don't know what the hell.
Well, with regards to that, though, I mean, at 125, you're going to have a shorter lifespan than you are at the other divisions. So, I think that people do tend to forget just how awesome Figgy was because his reign didn't come close to Mighty Mouse's. But Johnson also had the advantage of becoming the king at a young age when the division was still very much in its development stage. That's not to try to take away from the greatness of Johnson, but I think that as Johnson was maturing, so was the rest of the division. And while I do think he ended up peaking, he was fortunate that the rest of the division was developing right along with him, and he was able to remain the king for so long because of that.
Mm-hmm. And it's just different now. Like dudes at 125, 135 are better than they've ever been. Look at Merab. Like, look what the heck he's up to. He's running. He's the champ. He's fighting Sean O'Malley. Most people think Merab's going to win that fight, but I do think it's a tough fight for him, especially because Merab's getting older, and we just saw Figgy not look the best now that he's a little bit older. It didn't even seem to be a physical thing about Figgy either. It was just like a mental, like, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Sorry, I don't know what he's doing. But Cory Sandhagen called for a championship bout. He's had a lot of opportunities, and he's kind of fell short a lot of times. And this was another opportunity for him. I feel bad for him because he was on his way to, if this fight kept looking like this for 3-4 more rounds, he was probably going to finish Figgy. And in my opinion, that would have been like, okay, but now there's sort of an asterisk on this. And I don't think that there's the most clear contender at 135 right now. Do you think he deserves, or do you think he gets the next title fight? Say Merab does.
If Merab wins, yes, because one of the things that the UFC tends to ignore when they delay somebody their well-earned title shot, because Merab should have gotten the title shot sooner than what he did. But the problem is that he just ravaged through everybody on the way up to there, to the point where there were so very few people that he hadn't. Yeah. And it also means that there's very few intriguing contenders for him when he does become champion, because, well, shit, he's already beat everybody. And so at this point, Sandhagen's about the only guy that he hasn't faced that has been hovering around the top 5 for several years at this point. And, and I think it's just pure dumb luck that it played out that way for Sandhagen. But, who else is there? Merab has already beat Peter Yan, and I would say that Yan would be the next best option. He just barely beat Umar, so Umar needs to go and get a win before he can come back around. Marlon Vera, as much as I love Cheeto, he never should have gotten that shot against O'Malley. That was UFC giving O'Malley a favor. But heck, I feel like O'Malley doesn't deserve this shot. I wanted to see him go get another win before he came back around, but it is what it is. And Bautista? If he wins his upcoming fight, no, I don't think he's quite there.
Just beat Henry Cejudo.
That is true, but Sandhagen's got a win over him.
And Petrion has a win over Sandhagen. So
and throw in the fact that Jan has a win over Yadong too. So
it's just this round robin. So what I think is going to actually happen is, I think laying all my cards on the table, I think Merab is going to beat O'Malley again. And I think that Pantoja is fighting Kai Kara France pretty soon. I think if Pantoja fucks up Kai Kara France or just wins honestly, he just has to win. As long as it's not some crazy, highly contested thing where it turns into, this rivalry. If maybe this turns into the Figgy and Brandon Moreno rivalry, and this can all go into the trash. But I think if Pantoja beats Kai Kara France, the UFC is probably going to be a lot quicker to try to. I mean, what if we need a fight card in December? We need a fight card in December, or we need a fight card of January 2026. We need a headliner. And if we're going to make it Merab's headlined multiple events at this point. Pantoja's really never has. Pantoja has headlined fully, hasn't he, at this point? Didn't he headline in Brazil last year?
He's headlined his last two defenses. He headlined with Asakura to end 2024. And then, he headlined in Brazil. Whereas, let's see here. Okay, Merab headlined Noche, but I think that's the only pay-per-view that he's headlined, because he was on the undercard for the was it Makachev? Yeah, Makachev and what ended up being Moicano.
So I could totally see the UFC putting another super fight together with Pantoja and Merab, especially if Pantoja beats Kara France. And then at that point, it would be real hard to convince me that any other contender at 135, unless someone does something spectacular, it would be very hard to convince me that any of those dudes we just spoke about deserves a chance at a 135 title over frickin' Pantoja.
Yeah.
Look at the hell Pantoja's been
Well, the thing is that, it comes down to, okay, does either of them have a challenger that they haven't already dealt with? And Pantoja's cleared out 125. Merab's cleared out 135. Like I said, Sandhagen's about the only one, and I'll be the first to admit that it's not a clear-cut case that he deserves it. So,
yeah, I mean, on this card coming up this weekend, Jose Aldo's fighting Aiemann Zahabi. If he kicks Aiemann Zahabi's head off, that you're smiling because you know it. I don't want it. I don't want it.
No. As much as I love Aldo, he's too old at this. Yeah, no, I like him in the role that he's in.
If Sean O'Malley knocks out Merab Dvalishvili and Jose Aldo knocks out Aiemann Zahabi, you know what the fuck's gonna happen. You know it. You know what's gonna happen. You know the UFC will die to make Jose Aldo versus Sean O'Malley. I'm just thinking about this right now, and I hate myself for doing this, but you know it, because look what they did for O'Malley already right now.
And O'Malley's one of their favorites, and if you're one of the UFC's favorites, they will cater to you. I mean, good hell, they gave Bisping a 46-year-old Dan Henderson in his first title defense. I mean, come on, that was a load of crap. I love Hendo, but he did not deserve that title shot. And what's even worse, Hendo came pretty close to beating him.
And then in the same turn, they made him defend against GSP.
Oh, dude, yeah, no, he refused to defend against UL. He was supposed to defend against UL, refused to do it, and ended up getting GSP.
I could totally. We've seen fuckery. We've seen it with our own two eyes. That's why I just don't think Cory Sandhagen is the most clear contender. Now, if Petroyan and Cory Sandhagen get, booked for a title eliminator, or maybe some sort of interim title bout, and they fight a 5-round fight, and either one of them finishes the other guy, then they just move right up to the front of the ledger. If Cory Sandhagen hits Petroyan with a jump knee and knocks him out, he's just he automatically moves to the front of the ledger. But I feel like he still needs to do that to be the one holding the golden ticket. Go kill Bautista really quick. If he goes and kills Bautista, that would make so many fans very happy.
Just a few.
It's funny that we talk about Aldo he's still in the running for if Jose Aldo is fighting ranked opponents, he is in the running for a title fight. It's crazy.
It's I don't want to admit it, but I think that there probably is truth to that.
Dude, why do you think he's the featured fight on this pay-per-view coming up? They don't let go. The co-main event from UFC Des Moines was Bo Nickal taking on Reinier de Ridder. Reinier de Ridder defeats Bo Nickal via TKO stoppage, knees to the body, after what kind of started to turn into a little bit of a shit kicking. Huge wake-up call. RDR put a lot of people on notice. This was kind of really similar to the main event in the way that like one dude performed really, really well and the other one looked terrible. Man, I'm here to eat crow, not because I picked this fight wrong. I think I might have been one of the only Sherdog staffers, unless you did, to pick RDR in this fight. I am on record sitting in front of this microphone, in this computer, in this office, in this house of mine, picking Reinier de Ridder to win. I thought it may look like all the ugly parts of this fight. When I say ugly, like just the nasty clinching against the cage and just, RDR being bigger and just having a longer fight record and more fights than Bo. But boy, oh boy, not only did RDR rip Nickal apart, but Nickal, he fell apart, dude. He was like that piece of shit car on the highway where stuff is just flying off. This was bad.
It was bad, but it was something that should have been expected. Like, anybody who watches this show, I'm sure, has watched Shillen and Duffy, whether it's their preview show or the post-event show that they do. And everybody knows that the number one fan of Bo Nickal is Keith Shillen. But Keith made some excellent points with regards to Bo's development in the post-fight show, pointing out that Bo hasn't exactly been focusing solely on MMA. And I think he's been a little bit cocky with regards to everything because
I think a little bit is a nice thing to say.
You're absolutely right. But yeah, no, he's been extremely cocky about it because it's been pretty easy for him. He had like what, dude, Val Woodburn, Jamie Pickett, those were easy matchups for him because they couldn't really do anything to him with their skill set. And with regards to Paul Craig, everybody knows that Craig is extremely dangerous on the ground. The problem is that people are usually foolish enough to go down to the ground with him. That's 9 times out of 10. That's how it works for Craig. Nickal didn't have to worry about that. And I think he didn't show RDR any respect because, RDR is a 2-division champion in one, but one isn't exactly the same as the UFC. I mean, just like 2 or 3 years ago, Brandon Vera was the heavyweight champion in one, and he watched out of the UFC, a decade or so ago at this point? But yeah, I mean, it's just that's
12 years.
Yeah, ago. That's where a lot of people look at one and they're just like, oh yeah, they're not on the same level. They're not, but that doesn't mean that everybody who fights there is crap. I mean, good hell, Mighty Mouse recently fought there, and we've been saying that. Hey, I would, yeah. And I would love it if we kept saying I would love it if a Mighty Mouse would come and challenge Pantoja for the belt just to see who is the all-time GOAT at flyweight. But he didn't pay RDR any sort of respect. He just assumed that he'd be able to hang with him on the ground. I think that was proven when he foolishly went for that guillotine. that he'd be able to get up, that RDR, his grappling isn't all that great. And RDR put him into all sorts of trouble once the fight did hit the ground. And at that point, you could kind of see the confidence in Nickal just drop, because he realized he was in some trouble if he got himself into a bad position on the mat. And he did not fight the second round like he knew what he wanted to do. He didn't look like he could box with him. He didn't look like he really was interested in going to the mat again. He just looked completely lost, and RDR just laid it on him.
So a couple things I want to say, because when I was breaking down this fight, a big tell for me was like Bo Nickal refused to wrestle Paul Craig, and even if Paul Craig is such a huge threat, like this is I think this is the perfect example. Did Islam Makhachev hesitate to wrestle Charles Oliveira? And I think that, did Habib not wrestle people? Did DC not try to wrestle John Jones? Like, watching this fight and Bo Nickal's performance, and I kind of start to parlay that with his other performances, especially the Paul Craig fight, where he exudes a lot of confidence. Like this over the past weekend after this fight, all the YouTube talking heads are making their videos right now about how American wrestling is no longer good in the UFC or for pro MMA. And I don't agree with that. Maybe it's not as good as, maybe in 2025, maybe other people's wrestling programs and what they do are better, but that doesn't mean American wrestling is not good for MMA anymore. Of course it is. Wrestling is one of the best bases you can have, arguably the best. But that doesn't mean it's best. Like, you can have all these high accolades, but that doesn't make you like a dogged fighter. And I don't know if Bo Nickal is like a dogged, like there's dudes out there like Jim Miller. You know what I mean? Like they're built different. There's Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier. Like when you think of Dustin Poirier, I'm like, oh, that's a bad mother. That's a fighter. And then when I think about Bo Nickal, I'm like, I don't know if he's. And I don't want to slander him, but like I listened to one of these talking head shows, and they're playing little clips of what Bo Nickal was saying, like, pre his career, how he was saying when he was watching the Dricus du Plessis fight, and he watched Dricus du Plessis hit that, headlock throw on Robert Whittaker. He realized at that point he would just be able to absolutely school both of them, and how he wants Khamzat Chimaev as the main event in the Allegiant Stadium. And Khamzat needs to get a couple more wins, but he wants to make sure that both of their records stay undefeated. That's why he's getting as much hate as he's getting. It's hard for me to be like, he doesn't deserve it. But I also think that if people are going to say bad things to him, like at least give him constructive criticism. I don't know if I don't know if his whole heart is into this. You were in the Sherdog Slack with us this past weekend, and there was an exchange against the cage where this was like about a minute before the fight ending sequence, and I typed into the Sherdog Slack. I'm like, uh-oh, the train might be derailing, guys. And then a minute later, Bo Nickal's curled up on the ground covering his guts. And when I saw him against the cage, like get knee to the body, Reinier de Ridder had that one single wrist control, and he was just like bop, 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 like peppering him with hooks to the head and to the body. Looking at Bo Nickal's face, it like, and I don't want to be slanderous, and I don't think this is, but it reminded me of the Max Roskloff fight against Austin Hubbard. The look on their face, like, oh God, adversity's a bitch. And obviously he needs way more development. Like there's no clearly he should not have been fighting RDR. Like, he should have been fighting the Trayshawn Gore fight that was supposed to happen. Like that's but there's a lot of things. I mean, I have even more to say. His physicality, like, I don't think he's big enough and strong enough for the division. Like, all the stuff he was saying about his weight, coming into this fight, he was like, oh, I'm 221. Like, I don't, like, was he overcompensating? Like, do you think he's going to continue with MMA as a full-on venture? Do you think he's big enough for this division?
I'm not worried about him being big enough for the division. I mean, he's not the biggest middleweight, but I don't think that he can do welterweight healthily. He's one of those that's kind of a tweener. Like, if they were to break up the weight classes, you know, separate them a little bit more, or not more, but add a weight division and then kind of reshuffle them, he would probably be one of those that would benefit from it. But I don't think that they're going to do that. So I think he stays where he's at. But as far as whether or not he continues, I don't know. This is really the turning point, because he's finally faced adversity, and this is when we find out who they really are. He can turn tail and run and do the same thing that has made Ronda Rousey one of the most reviled figures in MMA at this point. You know, because she didn't hang around for the adversity. I mean, even when she got her immediate rematch, you know, she basically said, look, I'm not doing any promotional stuff. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. That typically comes with it. And she became reviled for it. If Nickal takes that route, I don't think he's going to. I think that he's a smart person. I think he has a better understanding of human nature, human emotion than Rousey does. So I think he realizes if he's to try something like that, he's going to be reviled. And I think the main thing that Bo's looking to try to do is build the Bo Nickal brand. If he can continue to build his name, he can continue to have that wrestling. He's already got the wrestling pedigree, but continue to build the name in MMA. He can run Bo Nickal wrestling camps for the rest of his life, and be a legendary figure in that sense. And I think that's the main thing that he's interested in. I don't think he's interested in being UFC champion, because his attention is too split. If he actually is serious about that, I think he gives up some of his coaching and starts focusing solely on MMA. And this is the fulcrum. This is the turning point. We'll see where he's at. And if for his MMA career, losing is probably the best thing for him, because, you know, at that point, you generally, okay, this is what I've got to do to get better. You start to actually learn about that. But there's also something else that happens that's in the negative, and the aura is shattered. People aren't going to be they're not going to be in awe of him anymore. They're going to be willing to take the fight to him. So he's got to be ready for that.
I mean, he needs like a major reformation. He needs to. What concerns me about him is it's like that, like, jumping guillotine. Like, he just, I mean, he's clearly an incredible NCAA, just the highest level wrestler you could be. Like, one of the best wrestlers, just point blank period, like, in American history. Like, the dude's incredible. But, being the fastest biker doesn't mean you're the fastest runner. And if he's going to struggle, and RDR might, this win could age like fine wine. RDR could become the world champion in the next 12 months. He could be on a crazy title run, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I don't, for as high level of a wrestler that as he is, and as high in the rankings as he, and the aspirations that he has, like, I just don't, from what I saw, like physically, like I don't know if he's got like the horsepower to be 185 is like full of dudes that are hosses. Like look at DDP, look at Imavov, look at Hamzat, look at Caio Bahayo. Like they're huge and they're fucking hosses. Jared Cannonier, he's not a big dude, but he himself is like built like he may need to get on some strength and conditioning program. It's like, dude.
I love that you say Cannonier's not a big dude, but he fought at you heavyweight.
Yeah, you know, and like remember when he fought Bahayo and Imavov and they like towered over him, like those dudes are hosses. You know, and if he's gonna be like an Anthony Hernandez type body type, like he needs to be as tough. I don't, and that, I mean, you fucking knee someone to the floating rib, like that's gonna kill him. But that knee is not what finished Bo Nickal. I think Bo Nickal was finished after he spent some time on bottom in the first round of that fight. And when I saw his face when he was getting peppered with shots against the cage, he looked very defeated. I think that knee was just the cherry on top. He needs, in my opinion, if he wants to really take a swing at this, he's not good enough. Like I mean, his development's not there. He is not good enough to fight as little as he's been fighting. He needs to go
be a bigger camp too, man.
Freaking Jorge Masvidal is like, yeah, this guy gets in the room and he slings everyone around. And I'm like, well, I guess he just hasn't been in the room with RDR yet.
No, that's the thing. Like have him like, train with heavyweights or other UFC fighters or other people in large organizations, stuff like that, because I don't think that he's been training with the right people. I don't think he has truly challenged himself in MMA. Maybe he's challenging himself with wrestling practice and stuff like that, but wrestling is so different in MMA than it is in just freestyle.
And he was a big time like folk style wrestler. He was never like a power guy. Like he was much more of a like scrambly folk style dude where like in MMA, like dude, just like I feel like someone like Dricus du Plessis would literally roll him into a ball and chuck him out of the octagon. Like, cool, you're gonna get a takedown on du Plessis, and then like in the third round, he's just like still there with no decrease in cardio, and he's like huge and really strong and giant. And yeah, and all these dudes are crafty. Like middleweight is, it's not when Adesanya was coming up and he was beating up Vettori and Brunson. Like these dudes up at the top of the division are all crafty now. Like DDP is the most weirdly crafty dude like in the UFC. Hamzat is an exceptionally crafty wrestler and grappler with incredible ground and pound. Like Caio Bahayo is extremely crafty. Look at Imavov. Like I just, he needs to go and flatline a bunch of dudes if his aspirations are still the same. And I think he needs to just like get back to the Cody Brundages of the world. Bring back Nick Maximov, Dylan Budka, Torres Finney. Who's the dude that Torres Finney just beat?
Robert Valentin.
Yes, like bring that dude in. Like that's who Bo Nickal needs to be fighting. Robert Valentin. Like give him Ryan Loader.
The problem is once you raise him up to a certain level, it's hard to bring him down. I don't know.
Keep him away from Bikoev.
Oh no, I wasn't going to say Bikoev. Here's what I think that they'll do. I think it's going to be somebody like Gastelum's fighting Joe Piper coming up. Yeah. And I think most people are anticipating Piper wins that fight, and Gastelum will be coming off a loss. Nickal will be coming off a loss, and I think that's what they'll do because they got to give him somebody with some sort of name value, but at the same time, Gastelum kind of appears to be washed. That's what I think they'll do. What I think that they should do is probably somebody who has some name value, but is also has some lower stock would be like Edmund Shabazian. Like Edmund, I think would be something that Nickal could handle. Has a little bit of a name, so it's not too embarrassing. I mean, we all know that Edmund headlined a card way too young, never should have, but he did. And that's something that they could say, well, he's fighting a guy who used to headline a card. So that's my thoughts.
Or like Shara Bullet.
Oh, go. Yeah. That would be a gift for Bo, but at the same time, it would still be kind of like the worst thing that they could do as well, because Edmund's not anywhere near the top 15, whereas Shara Bullet's at least hovering on the fringes of it, deservedly or not.
I really do mean it, though. I really do think he should just like fight like 3 or 4 Ryan Loaders, Robert Valentines, Torres Finney's. Like he needs to just go and like wreck a couple of those dudes to at least get his confidence back.
Yeah.
And we talked enough about Bo. I even paused the recording to move on, but I was like, oh shit, we got to talk about RDR because he's the real star here. RDR did look freaking awesome. His body work looked great. His Muay Thai striking looked pretty damn good. He's still hittable and he's not the most powerful guy, but he's just kind of like the perfect middleweight with his game. Like his game totally works for middleweight, and I like it. Just be big and like really lean into your skill sets. You always got to love someone that's willing to do that. He called for Sean Strickland. I don't know if he gets it, but he might. And I'm okay with it. If not, maybe they give him like Fluffy. What do you think?
Fluffy's actually the name that I had down. A fight with Fluffy kind of makes sense because neither of them are really considered to be contenders yet. But I think a win over one or the other, Fluffy beats RDR or RDR beats Fluffy, I think at that point it's going to be kind of undeniable to say that, yeah, they don't deserve a contender at this point. So, yeah, that was the name I had.
And, someone's got to fight to get into the top 10 rankings of men's middleweight. What a wonky division. And a division that's kind of brought a lot of excitement into the UFC in the past couple of years. That wraps up the first segment of the show. Out with the old. Not a ton of fights that we talked about, but we did do a lot of talking. Sorry, Bo Nickal fans, if I was offensive. I was really trying to not be offensive or slanderous. Those are just my opinions. Moving on to UFC this weekend, we have UFC 315. We have 3 fights we're going to talk about. And in a fight that kind of came together on short notice-ish against Jack Della Maddalena, co-headlined by Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt again, her newer belt against Manon Fiorot. And then we're going to talk about this fight. We've got Jose Aldo taking on Aiemann Zahabi. Odds on this fight. Jose Aldo is a -225, even -245 favorite on some lines. And you can get Aiemann Zahabi coming back at +180. I mean, if you listen to this show and you don't know who Jose Aldo is, like, please exit the room. 38, down a division, coming off of a split decision loss to Mario Bautista. Before that, he beat Jonathan Martinez. Before that, he lost to the current champion. And he was on a 3-fight win streak there. He beat Cheeto. He beat Pedro Munoz. He beat Rob Font. He did have that real bad loss to Petroyan that kind of started all of this. But it seems like Jose Aldo's kind of here to stay as long as he wants to be. On the other hand, we have Aiemann Zahabi. He is the Canadian, the little bro of the famous Zahabi. And of course, my phone just decides to reset. Really, really cool and awesome. Aiemann Zahabi is not a young man himself either. 37 years old. His birthday is later this year in November. He is coming off of a pretty darn good win streak and pretty nonchalant. This is a dude that was like not fighting at all, took like a 2-year hiatus, pulled up, knocked out Draco Rodriguez, had one of the worst fights in UFC history against Ricky Tercios that no one will ever remember. But that's the one where Ricky was like fighting air. Like, like,
oh, I remember it. I remember it. It was ridiculous.
Unfortunately, Ricky Tercios was fighting air, and then he beat
Ariki Lang.
He beat Ariki Lang. But really, like, where he kind of put himself on the map is where he beat Javid Basharat. He was like a big dog in that fight. That was in March of last year. And then he went on to beat Pedro Munoz. Faras's little brother, he's doing big things. Is he doing big enough things to beat the actual? I mean, the term legend gets thrown around real fucking willy-nilly in MMA. But no, Jose Aldo is a legend. Does he have what it takes to beat the legend Jose Aldo?
He might have what it takes to beat the legend Tyrone Roberts, at least if you ask Bisping, who's a legend. Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
That's a prime example of how the term legend is. And Bisping being a legend himself.
Yeah. Yeah, we already ripped on Bisping a little bit earlier, so we'll skate on. Anyway, this is is Aldo 39 or is he 30? Regardless, he's in his late 30s, and he's not even on the back 9. He's probably on the back 4.
He's 38 and he turns 39 in September.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not going to say that it's out of the realm of possibility that he beats him, but I think that it's highly unlikely. Aldo may not be the peak athlete that he once was, but he's still a superior athlete to Zahabi. Yeah. No, he was a fantastic athlete. I'm saying that at this point, he's not what he once was.
Even at
he's
this
still
point,
good,
he is still probably a better athlete than 65% of the division. And bantamweight is a division where every single person's an athlete.
Well, yeah, unless you're Pedro Munoz at this point. But
sure.
No, I get it. I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yes. But and that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say that Zahabi never was a we'll say a plus athlete for 135.
Sure.
And at this point, it's kind of a shame that he's hitting his stride so late, because if this had happened 3 or 4 years ago, I would have felt a lot better about Zahabi's chances of having a little bit of staying power. But it's happening now. He's, like you said, 37, and yeah. I people will say, well, Aldo could fall off, and guess what? Zahabi could fall off too.
So when it comes to this fight, I think I don't want to use the term "the news is out" on Jose Aldo, but like, you can watch the Merab Dvalishvili fight, and you can watch the Mario Bautista fight, and you can see like a path. You can do what Petrion did, but like we talked about Petrion earlier in the show, and we've, Petrion is a damaging, punishing opponent. Like, prime example is look what he did to Jose Aldo. But that was a 5-round fight. That was late into the fight, and this is only a 3-round fight. And I don't think Zahabi, number one, has the physicality to do what Merab Dvalishvili or Mario Bautista did. And he's clearly very well schooled, and he's got big power. I think he definitely does have plus power. But he's a low volume guy, and he's willing to be low volume. And one thing I know about Jose Aldo is like he's a willing combination puncher. If allowed to move forward, he will. If allowed to rip body punching combinations, he will. He will rip leg kicks. He will throw jump knees. He will throw head kicks himself. Not so much now that he's gotten older. He much more would rather box. But Jose Aldo is the better, craftier boxer with the better vision, the better head movement, the better hand speed, the better power of the two. The only thing, in my opinion, where Jose Aldo, it's just the years and years of damage accrued and the years and years of just like being an MMA fighter at the highest level. Like Jose Aldo is a Mount Rushmore type dude. Like he's literally one of the GOATs. And in my opinion, unless he falls off absolutely terribly, I think he's being properly matched here. I think it's in everyone's best interest if Jose Aldo wins a fight. And I think it's, if Zahabi can pull this off, I think it looks good in front of the Canadian crowd. Again, a French, French speaking region of that country. I just don't see like paths to victory for Zahabi in a 3-round fight against Jose Aldo, where he himself is going to probably have less volume. What's he going to do? Like, what's Zahabi's path to victory?
Catching Aldo. And one of the things that people tend to forget with regards to Aldo is the fact that he's one of the supreme defensive fighters out there. So I don't think that he's going to be able to just catch him with one shot. I'm 100% with you. You took the words out of my mouth when you said, look at who Aldo's lost to. It's been guys that are able to just grind him out, and that's not Zahabi.
Like, you got to be... Petrian fucked him up really bad, actually, towards the end of that fight, but held a world title. Merab Dvalishvili completely nullified him, and what little offense Merab had in that fight, Aldo had zero. And then Bautista had some close striking exchanges and was forced to kind of, and that was the closest fight of the three. Well, Aiemann Zahabi has, he beat Javid Basharat, he beat Pedro Munoz, but I think that this may be like, I think that he's reached his height. He may go on to beat a couple other dudes outside the rankings. But I just don't see a path to victory for him here. I think the odds could even maybe be wider. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aldo close. We're recording this on Tuesday, May 6th. I would not be surprised by Friday if Aldo swells to like a -300 favorite. I don't, in a 3-round fight, how's Aldo not going to bag the first 2 rounds of this fight?
Yeah, no, he's still got enough in the tank that he can fight 3 rounds effectively, not have to put it on cruise control. He's going to be fine.
Yeah. So it seems like we both got Aldo. I've got him by decision. I think he wins the first round very clearly. I think he wins the second round clearly too, but not as clear. And then the third round, who knows? But then Zahabi's going to be looking for a finish, and I don't know that's going to happen.
I'll say by TKO in round 2.
I would love to see it. Fucking punches to the body and combination up to the head to complete the combination. That would be chef's kiss. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Manon Fiorot, and I pulled the odds up about 3 hours ago, so I'm actually going to hit refresh because this is super professional and exactly what everybody wants to hear. But I want to see if the odds have changed in the last couple hours, because I think they may have. When I looked earlier, Manon Fiorot was a slight favorite, and she still is. Manon Fiorot is coming in at a -140 favorite. Shevchenko is a +120 underdog. Valentina Shevchenko, what is there to say about her? Like, we were just talking about someone that is considered a legend in Jose Aldo, and I think Is Valentina Shevchenko not a legend of women's MMA herself? I would say she
Absolutely.
totally is.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. I think Nunes is the only one who has more title defenses than her in the UFC for any women's division. So yeah, that's pretty damn legendary.
And Shevchenko is the first one to like get all the rubies for the belt.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So she's got
yeah.
like all the fucking like this girl. And she's fighting Manon Fiorot. This is really, really interesting because we've talked about people earlier, people that were stuck in like quadrilogies and trilogies, and I think you could consider Valentina Shevchenko in a quadrilogy if you consider tough too, because they competed like she's so much of her career lately has been her and Grasso just intertwined with each other, competing, whether it's on a show or in a fight or whatever. She's coming off of the Alexa Grasso win. That was at UFC Noche last year. Before that, she had the draw with Grasso. Prior to that, she had a fight where she was kind of cruising to victory and made one mistake, and then had that crazy face crank against Grasso. Before the Grasso trilogy, the Talia Santos fight happened, where a lot of people thought she lost. Manon Fiorot, she is coming off of a pretty impressive performance herself. She most recently defeated Erin Blanchfield and then took on Rose Namajunas prior to that, and also beat Caitlin Chukagian, Sermonara, Maya Buenasilva, and Jennifer Maya. So she's on a hell of a run. She lost her very first pro fight in 2018 against Leah McCourt, and then since then has strung together 12 victories, and she's on a killer streak. Both of these women are, I would dare to call either one of them old, but I would say older on the spectrum of MMA. But I think there's a shift that's starting to happen in women's MMA where maybe it's not as close to men's MMA as we all thought it would have been, as far as like athletic peaks and primes and stuff like that. So we've got the 37-year-old Shevchenko taking on the 35-year-old Fiorot. Shevchenko's got 29 fights. Manon's got 13. Big gap in difference, but is this one of the, where Shevchenko may be on her way down the escalator, Manon is on the way up, and are they, where are they meeting? How do you think this fight goes?
Very, very difficult fight to try to contest with those types of facts, because you're talking about the lack of experience for Fiorot, which you could say, well, that's a positive because she doesn't have as many miles on her body. And then some would contest, well, she does have a kickboxing career. Yes, that's true, but it's not like Shevchenko has only participated in MMA. She has a kickboxing career as well that's quite extensive. So if we're going to talk about miles on the body, even with Fiorot having a kickboxing career, Shevchenko is miles ahead in terms of wear and tear on the body. And so even though there's just about a 2-year difference between the two of them, it's very conceivable that, yes, Shevchenko is on the downslide, whereas Fiorot is on the upside, or upswing, I should say. And while Shevchenko looked really good in the last fight against Grasso, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Shevchenko is an incredibly intelligent fighter. And I think that the first fight with Grasso, I think she just kind of got stuck on autopilot because she had been the champion for so long, didn't really have any close fights. I think the closest one was Taila Santos. And I do believe that was the last one before that. But regardless, I don't remember anybody really saying that Grasso was going to pose a real challenge to her. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the fight that Grasso won to get her title shot against Shevchenko was against Viviane Araújo. And when people were asking Grasso about the possibility of fighting Shevchenko next, she herself said that I probably need one more fight. nobody thought Grasso was ready for it. And so I think Shevchenko just kind of took it for granted. And I think Grasso benefited in the second fight from being a champion because you get bigger paychecks, you're able to get more attention, more specialized training, all that fun stuff. And so I think that she was able to up her game another level. And then at that point, Shevchenko had 2 fights with Grasso in the cage. She knew what it was that she needed to do because Shevchenko is one of the more intelligent fighters out there. We all know that. The question is how much attention has she given to Fiorot? And I think she's given a lot, but Fiorot has had an idea that this fight was coming for close to a year at this point, which is longer than Shevchenko. And she's also considerably bigger than Shevchenko. Like, I think you'll agree with me on that.
I do think she's bigger, but I also don't know if it matters as much. And the reason why I say that is, you could look at the Tyler Santos fight, but Manon Fiorot, number one, is a striker first. So she's not going to be like using her physicality in that way, typically based off her fighting style. And then number two, Shevchenko spent like all of her, a large part of her career at bantamweight fighting 145ers. Like, she fought women, Amanda Nunes twice, very close fights with her, arguably beat her once, Holly Holm, Juliana Pena, and these are all women that held titles there. And she's either beat or arguably beaten them. So I don't know if the size is going to be a huge factor, especially with the way Manon Fiorot fights. Fiorot is a very weird, has a very weird body type for her game too, because she's a very long torsoed human. Like, she's got a shorter reach than Shevchenko. And I'm I'm kind of surprised by the odds, which tells me that a lot of people think that the Grasso trilogy has really kind of
exposed.
I don't want to use the term exposed, but maybe a fast-handed, crafty boxer can give Shevchenko issues with their counterpunching in the pocket. Like how Alexa Grasso was able to rock and hurt Shevchenko twice in their fights. But I also don't know if that's Manon Fiorot. I haven't seen her do anything venomous since Victoria Leonardo or Tabitha Ricci.
So the reason why I did bring up the size, though, is because I'm with you. Fiorot's not going to be going for takedowns. I totally understand that. But Shevchenko has a tendency to attack their opponents where they don't want to be attacked. So I think Shevchenko is going to be looking for takedowns. And Fiorot has been pretty phenomenal when it comes to fighting off her opposition in terms of getting taken down. I take her being able to stuff Namajunas' takedowns with a grain of salt, because Namajunas should be fighting at flyweight. I'm not saying that
she had a broken hand.
Yeah. So I got to take that with a grain of salt. But she did very good in stopping Erin Blanchfield. And Blanchfield has a lot of mean in her. She's got a lot of drive. I do think that Blanchfield would probably be improved if they were to meet a second time. But regardless, the point is that Fiorot was able to withstand Blanchfield. And not that it's necessarily an accomplishment, but if you stop and think about what Blanchfield did to Molly McCann, just that was brutal. She was not able to do anything like that with Fiorot.
If you think about the reason why Bill did to Molly McCann.
Oh God! I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, you got there actually is truth to that, but no, my point is that just the fact that I don't think it's going to be easy for Shevchenko to get Fiorot on the ground, and I think that Fiorot's strength will come into play, because I expect there to be body lock takedown attempts from Shevchenko. I think there's going to be a lot of clinch fighting, a lot of fighting against the fence. And I think if Fiorot's willing to just let it go, she's got a lot of venom in her. with like some of her clinch strikes and stuff like that. That I don't know how, chins only last for so long, if you get what I'm saying. So I think between the two of them, Shevchenko's more prone to be knocked out. Not that I think either one of them's going to be, but you're trying to think of what are the most likely scenarios to win. If there's a submission, it's going to be Shevchenko. We both know that. Fiorot's not going to be subbing Shevchenko. When it comes to a decision, like you said, striking wise, they're both very similar. Neither one of them put a lot of extra motion in their strikes. You're not going to see a lot of overhands. You're not going to see a lot of hooks from either one of them. It's going to be a lot of jabs, straights, crosses, stuff with very little wasted motion. And it's kind of hard to say who's cleaner with regards to that. Who are you leaning towards?
I think in this fight, if this is going to be a strictly striking bout, that it's going to be close. I think Shevchenko is, I think honestly, I think Shevchenko is just better at everything than Manon Fiorot, point blank, period. But I do think that her age, the wear and tear, the miles, all the fights, all of these championship bouts, like I think back to the Jose Aldo thing, where like I think that's the one potential, differentiator in them. If this was the Valentina Shevchenko that had just finished Jessica Andrade, I would be like, signed, sealed, delivered. She's gonna kill this girl. Or the one that killed Chikagian, with the mounted crucifix. I'm like, oh, she's gonna kill this girl.
I'm with you.
Or like, remember when she kicked Jessica Ai's head off? So I think Manon Fiorot is, fortunately for Shevchenko in this fight, I don't think she is very dangerous. Like, she had Erin Blanchfield, who's got great jiu-jitsu, but just a bad wrestler, like not good wrestling. And we saw that in their last fight where she had Erin Blanchfield literally running at her full speed, like a kind of almost acting like a punching bag in that fight. And she couldn't put her away. And I mean, if you ran at Shevchenko head first, she would set something up, ask Jessica Ai. I think Shevchenko is a little more crafty in her setups with her striking. I think in this fight, Manon Fiorot is going to probably really try to push Shevchenko on the back foot, try to use her size against the cage. I think Shevchenko can use her footwork and use her kicks and keep this fight at a kicking range and then get into the pocket and then use her boxing to set up her wrestling. I think Shevchenko will. We saw Manon Fiorot fight 5 rounds when she's winning in a 50-45 at a fight that's her pace. Erin Blanchfield is not Valentina Shevchenko. I'm going to pick Shevchenko to get a 4th round TKO stoppage with ground and pound. I think the first couple rounds of this fight may look close, but I think Shevchenko will eventually get the takedowns. I think Shevchenko is just like, when I think of like a true martial artist, I think of people like Cory Sandhagen. I think of people like Valentina Shevchenko, where like you're not going to find a more well-schooled, like who Steven Seagal thinks he is who Valentina Shevchenko really is, like a true, like, live by the sword, die by the sword, well-schooled martial artist. And I just think her homework's there. I think this could be a potential coming out party for Shevchenko. I really do. I think she could, show people like, hey, I'm 37, but I'm still here. I just need my desk. I said a coming out party, but she's been out. Like she's honestly on the back end of her career, but I think that Shevchenko is going to come and make a statement here, and get just a late round stoppage. Give me a 4th round TKO ground and pound, or maybe she, hits her into submission. I just think Shevchenko is so much more well-rounded. Like if they're close on the striking, Shevchenko is a really good wrestler. Like she may be a better wrestler than she is striker now. And not only is she a good wrestler, like she looks for that mounted crucifix. She looks to do damage. She's got submissions off her back. She fucking triangle Juliana Pena up a weight class. I think she is going to beat Manon Fiorot and call out Weili Zhang and do a funny dance.
Can't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think that all makes a lot of sense. I'll pick Fiorot, and the reason why I'm picking Fiorot, I think that even if Shevchenko gets her down, and I think that she will get her down some, I think Fiorot's proven to be pretty scrambly. I think she'll be able to get back up, and it's largely going to be dependent upon the striking exchanges. I think Fiorot has a little bit more to prove. And like we know that Shevchenko's an all-time great and all that fun stuff. I think she's probably a little bit more motivated to hold on to the belt than she was when she faced Grasso the first time. But at the same time, Fiorot, she's not young. She's 35. I think she's smart enough to realize that if she doesn't get it here, she may not ever get another chance to fight for the belt. And the real X factor for me, it's in Montreal. She's French. I think the crowd's going to be rooting for her. And I think that that could influence the judges. And I think that she earns a squeaker on the scorecards.
If Valentina Shevchenko wins this fight, would you be surprised if she just starts speaking French on the microphone?
Hell no. That woman probably knows about 77 languages.
She's a, what are they called? Polydots? People that speak a lot of different languages.
I don't know. What I do know is that Carlos Newton should sell her the rights to being the Ronin, because if there's anybody who's truly a Ronin in MMA, it is her. Not saying that Newton wasn't, but yeah, no, Shevchenko is the ultimate Ronin at this point.
So you've got Manon Fiorot, and look, maybe I'm just trying to wish something into existence because I am a Shevchenko fan. By doing tape study for this, like watching Rose Namajunas have the success with the striking and having the broken hand, I just let's see what happens when Manon Fiorot faces some adversity, because I know I mean, she's not going to go out there and cold clock Shevchenko in round one.
No, she's not.
She will have to face adversity in this fight. So let's see how she does. Moving on to the main event of UFC 315, we have Belal, remember the name Muhammad, fighting three-name Jack Della Maddalena. Odds on this fight, I have not looked at these odds yet. I kind of do this on purpose too. I don't really want. I think it's a polyglot, by the way, when you speak a bunch of different languages. I don't know. Odds on this fight, Belal Muhammad is some lines have him at a -220. Another couple have him around -190 to -200. JDM is a +160 underdog. So it's a real interesting fight. We've got Belal Muhammad, the 36-year-old champion. He's coming off of a string of, wins and then the 1-0 contest. But he has not lost a fight since 2019, where he lost to Jeff Neal. And he hasn't been finished since that Vicente Luque fight way back in 2016. Since then, he's avenged that loss and, kind of gone on a weird but pretty damn good streak. JDM is much more of a newcomer. He's only 28 years old. He himself is coming off of a incredible streak of wins. He lost his very first 2 pro fights, and then since then has ripped together only like 17 wins in a row. So both of these dudes are on incredible win streaks. JDM coming off the Contender Series and has looked pretty good since then. It's funny because he's got a ton of finishes besides a couple splitties back to back, but like he kind of put Ange Lusa through hell in the Contender Series, killed Pete Rodriguez, killed Ramazan Emeev, killed Danny Roberts, club and sub Randy Brown. Then he had that weird Basel Hafez fight where like Basel Hafez showed up on short notice and like, gonna try to watch my words here, was probably on steroids. And then the Kevin Holland fight, which is close. then the Gilbert Burns fight where, like, you know, not for that knee. Who knows? Belal Muhammad his streak is, I mean, people call him pillow hands, but like, dude, he knocked out Sean Brady, who's looking like the clear number one contender in this division for after this fight, and like looking like also like one of the better like wrestler grapplers in the UFC period. Um, then his win over Gilbert Burns in that weird unnecessary fight at UFC 288 that was like put together on like 2 weeks notice, where they were forced to fight 5 rounds. Gilbert Burns was like injured, but he looked incredible against Leon Edwards. This is a really, really interesting fight, because I think I like, personally, I like dudes that fight like JDM, because he's got like that Jose Aldo in him, with like the ripping combinations to the body, the tenacity, the willingness to be on the front foot, the willingness to like stay in the pocket and counterpunch with, 3 and 4 punch combinations. And then you've got a guy like Belal Muhammad, who is like, when it comes to like fight IQ and like preparedness, that's why this dude's the champion. There's not many people that are better prepared and better schooled and have better game plans. We've got dudes on this card like Iwan Kutalaba, who's probably never had a game plan in his whole life. And then you've got Belal Muhammad. I'm gonna go first in this fight. Obviously, Jack Della Maddalena is the more dangerous dude of the two. I would say with his ability to kind of get out wrestled and out grappled by Gilbert Burns, but then I don't want to say pull a rabbit out of a hat, but make shit happen when it really freaking counted. You know, look at the way he finished Randy Brown with those dangerous combinations, body, head, and then he clubs him and takes him to the ground. He's got Craig Jones in his corner. Now he's, supposedly tapped out Craig Jones in training. Did you see Craig Jones' tattoos on the bottom of his feet? He got "fuck you" tatted on the bottom of his feet. The F word on one and the U on the other. So like he's playing guard. I'll send it to you. I've got it screen grabbed. I'll send it to you after. But gonna just again, just lift the curtain. But I'm gonna go Belal Muhammad in this fight. I'm going Belal Muhammad. Gonna talk it out. I think watching tape on this, Jack Della Maddalena is a crafty pocket boxer who's really fun, but is also himself hittable and doesn't throw many jabs or straight punches. And I think watching Belal Muhammad's fight with Leon Edwards, like he had a lot of success, not only grappling, but striking with Leon Edwards, like throwing straight punches, throwing linear attacks, straight shots, uppercuts. Like he rocked Leon Edwards with an uppercut before taking him down in the first round. Belal Muhammad has really, really good footwork, and he's just like, Belal Muhammad is like one of those Humvees that's like all-wheel drive. If you've ever seen like one of those amphibious vehicles that like you can take up a mountain, over a lake, you can do any, like Belal Muhammad can kind of almost, it's not great at anything. He's just good at everything. Where you go look at his fight with his rematch with Vicente Luque, where he was able to kind of stay on the outside and use his footwork and avoid the big power. I think he kind of takes a game plan like that. Look at his approach with Gilbert Burns. He kind of did something similar, but was also willing to wrestle and grapple with Gilbert Burns and had success there. I think in this fight, Jack Della Maddalena really needs to put Belal Muhammad against the cage and try to rip him apart with combinations. That's where he does a lot of his good work. But I think Belal Muhammad's footwork and his speed is going to be, I think he's going to have better hand speed than Jack Della Maddalena. I think he's going to be able to use his outside footwork, and then his wrestling entries, like the way he got Leon Edwards up against the cage, cutting the angle, locking the hands against the cage. Again, I'm going Belal Muhammad, and Jack Della Maddalena is a very dangerous opponent, but I think he's just going to be too foot slow and too plodding. He doesn't throw enough straight punches. If he hurts Belal, he's got a good club and sub game. He's got good power, but I don't see Belal Muhammad backing straight up to the cage, shelling up, and letting a guy like Jack Della Maddalena rip 5-punch combinations against him. Don't think he takes the back foot. I think he's going to have, Belal Muhammad's got such good footwork. Like, he's so studious. I'm rambling here. I'm sorry I haven't given you a chance to speak, but I'm on Belal Muhammad.
That's okay. It's probably a good thing you didn't give me time to speak for a little bit because my daughter made her way in here. Anyway.
Fan of the show.
Apparently, yeah. She's done that a couple of times now. So I am going to disagree with you a little bit on something. You said that Belal is just good at everything. But I would say that there's two things that he does that he is absolutely excellent at. Number one, good luck finding anybody who is better conditioned to go a hard 25 minutes than Belal is.
1,000%.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anybody who is better suited to do that than he is. And he's been able to make.
And that's who I would compare him to.
Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right with regards to that. But who does it better is hard to say.
When we talk about Merab and I say, hey, Dane, who's got the best cardio you've ever seen in MMA? That's who we're comparing Belal Muhammad to. That's who you're. Like, that's what we're talking about here. That's like real high level shit, man. Like.
No, you're right. Merab is better. Merab is better, but
no. But like, even if Belal, like, they're there.
No, I agree. Like, I had to kind of think about it. I kind of had to think about it, but like, what was Merab had something like 50 takedown attempts in one fight, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, which is absolutely freaking insane. And maybe I can attribute it to Merab being at a bantamweight. I think it's probably a little bit harder to have that level of cardio at welterweight where Belal is. Regardless, the point is that he's able to make cardio a weapon. And with regards to that, Jack better be ready to fight off takedown attempt after takedown attempt. I just realized one thing. Okay, so I said that he's great at two things. He's actually great at three, and another one of those things that I'm just adding to it. He chains his takedown attempts together like nobody's business. Yes.
So many different entries. Head on the outside, head on the inside, low singles, high crotch, double legs. He'll cut the corner. Like, look what he did to. I'm sorry. I'm like, now I'm thinking about it more, and it's like, dude, look at that. Like, look at the way he transitioned from like head on the outside, head on the inside, high crotch single, and like dump fucking Leon Edwards on top of his head.
Yep. No, exactly. Like, it's the variety that he offers, because you have absolutely no way to know what it is that he's going to do next, because he's super quick in changing the tactic if it's not working. Like, he'll go for a double. If you immediately sprawl, he's immediately transitioning to a single or to whatever. And he's also, and here's the thing that I think that he does, the third thing that he is great at, good luck finding somebody who's more technical too. Everything that he does is incredibly technical, whether it's his jab, his entries, his shots. You never see him get caught in a guillotine or anything like that, because he does not give his neck out there to get caught. That doesn't mean that he's impervious to losing. He's lost before. I do believe he'll lose again at some point, but I don't think it's going to be this fight. He's going to be in Della Maddalena's face for the entirety of the fight. And if you look at the people that Della Maddalena has struggled with, it's been people who have stayed in his face the entire fight, which includes probably like you said, juiced, with what I'm not going to say, juiced Basil Hafez. And here's something that's, yeah. Here's something that's
across the cage and like smashed him against the cage like instantly and easily.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Hafez has looked best against Della Maddalena. He looked human against Mickey Gall, and he did not look good against Oban Elliott. And if you don't know who Oban Elliott is, that's kind of my point. I'm not saying Elliott's a bum. I don't think he's a bum.
That's not a cleaning detergent.
Prospect. But
like when I think of Oban, Oban's to me sounds like Persil, like one of those like old school ass like laundry detergents, or like something you'd clean your tub, like you'd clean your tub with. You got some Oban under the sink at home, I bet.
Borax.
Like it's it's like
it's something along those lines.
You're totally right. Jack's a fun fighter.
I like Jack.
I just don't know if I hate to say, I don't know if he's got what it takes to beat a Belal Muhammad, but I don't know if he's got what it takes to beat a Belal.
I think Jack would have a better chance of beating an Ian Gary or a Shavkat. I think Belal is a nightmare matchup for him. And for him to be getting his title shot, obviously we don't know what the future holds, especially given that he's still so young. But if this is the only title shot that he gets and it's against Belal, oh shit, man. That's bad.
And I'm a little concerned about Belal because he had that really bad issue where he got the staph on his toe, and I'm like, his whole body had sepsis. And when he got out of the hospital, he tried to see how many push-ups he could do as a champion of the world, and like could only do 4 or 5 or something like that. So, that is a concern. But, if you know anything about Belal Muhammad, not you, but listeners, if you guys know anything about Belal Muhammad, like I have never seen Belal Muhammad not shown up to a fight as like the definition of prepared for a fight is how Belal Muhammad shows up to fights. Like he's I mean, if you're a coach, like an MMA coach, you got to love dudes like Belal Muhammad.
Oh yeah. 100%. No, he soaks everything in. And
and that's probably why he gets down with Habib and those boys too, because it's like, he can be humble and admit defeat in the training room. He can learn. And I just haven't seen Belal Muhammad he's just real good. And a lot of people don't like to hear it because a lot of people call him boring. I think Jack Della Maddalena would have a ton of success against someone like Leon Edwards, someone that is a little more slow paced with the volume and like has lapses of judgment that you can make them pay for. But Belal Muhammad is not a dude that has lapses of judgment. Once Belal Muhammad starts having lapses of judgment and making bad decisions, he's washed because he's already older. But I have not seen a sign of that. He seems to me like he's only getting better, which is weird because he's 36.
Yeah, but that's also that's very much an attribute to how hard he works. You're hard pressed to find somebody who works harder than he does. I mean, we're talking about somebody he's not particularly blessed physically. He's not a great athlete. He doesn't have one punch power, but he has gotten to where he is through sheer grit and determination because nobody is going to outwork him. And he dots his I's, he crosses his T's in a manner that very few ever have before. So if you're ever talking about a self-made champion, 100% Belal.
That's another way that I compare him to Merab, like two dudes that have both like just paid in full, earned it the hard way. Like they not only did they climb to the top of the mountain, but they fought every other dude that climbed to the top until there were Belal he made himself undeniable, the same way Merab did. So we both agree on Belal. How do you think he gets it done?
And that's what I was about to say. What's the manner? I think that he can. I think he can break down Jack by, we'll say 4th round stoppage.
Man, I really hope he does like the Kamaru Usman thing, where like people call him boring, people call him a decision machine, but then the second they like get close to the belt or get the belt, like they start like fucking people up and like hurting them. You know, I'd love to see Belal turn a leaf like that. It'd be really great if he stopped JDM here. Apparently he has a win over Kamaru Usman on the set of their podcast too. Supposedly Henry twisted his ankle trying to break him up. Dude, I watched a training video with Henry yesterday, and like the partner he picked to go with was like a 5-foot chick, and I'm like, they're the same height. Poor Henry. I actually really like Henry. He's like he's a dude that like really embraced being a goofball, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
For me, for Belal, I'm gonna go by decision. I actually am gonna pick Jack to hurt him at some point in this fight. I think like in the 1st or 2nd round, Jack's gonna hurt him with something, like maybe he hurts him to the body, or he hurts him with like a body head punching combination. But I think like the fight is really one-sided, besides like the one moment where Jack catches Belal with something, and then I think it just goes right back to being a Belal fight.
If Jack's going to win it, it's going to be early, because Belal. Yeah, no, he absolutely has to knock him out, but it's beyond that. Belal will take, he'll take further information and process it,
and he won't gas out and make the same mistake that if nope. Like the thing is that this fight, like, why doesn't this look like the Gilbert Burns fight with Jack Della Maddalena minus the mistakes and the cardio?
Yeah, no, Gilbert's prone to mistakes, and he's got, we'll say, sketch cardio. So
he doesn't have his brother's cardio.
Oh, good.
His brother gets tired drinking water. Like he gets tired resting. Like, how do you get tired by taking a nap?
Didn't Gilbert have to carry him out of the ring after one of his losses by exhaustion? I
think Gilbert had to carry him out of the cage when Gilbert himself lost a fight. Like
that's possible.
So we've got Belal Muhammad. I'm going by decision. I think it's like one of those weird cards where like he loses one round but gets like a 10-8 round. Like a 49-44. Or sorry, like a
49-45.
Yeah, sorry, like a 49-45. Math is hard, and I work for a credit union. That's kind of what I think. Give me Belal by decision here. I think it's very clear, besides like a 15-second moment that JDM has where he hurts him with something, and then Belal just gets back to it. And then I think poor Belal Muhammad will get on the mic and say something really stupid. That's his only downfall, is like sometimes he just like he's gonna like call out DDP or something like that.
Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, either one. That is the show, everyone. Dayne, thank you so much for tuning in. Tell the people where they can find you, where they find your work, and where they can see your fight night tweets. I guess that's Twitter.
I'm on Sherdog. Got at least a weekly article coming out every week, so check that out. And I am on the Twitter at the Dayne Fox.
Handles are right below. I always try to point, and I can never point to mine. Oh, look, there it is.
I struggle with it too, man. You're not the only one. Let me see here. Hey, I did it right.
Hey. So follow us on these places. Go to Sherdog.com. Check the kick. Enjoy the fights, everyone.